Welcome to Some Stutter Law. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this incredible journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Some Stutter Law is Newfoundland and Labrador's first podcast about communicating differently. It is a production of the Communication Collaborative. For more information about the Communication Collaborative or this podcast, you can find us at somestutterlaw.ca. Today, Some Stutter Law warmly welcomes Mounah Bizri.
Hi.
Before we begin, I'd like to inform our listeners that Mounah's primary language is French. He also speaks English. To support Some Stutter Law's efforts to embrace diversity and to be more culturally inclusive, this episode will be done and posted in French and English. Thank you so very much, Mounah, for helping and accommodating Some Stutter Law's efforts to embrace diversity and to be more culturally inclusive. So now about Mounah. Every idea, and I'm reading what Mounah sent me. This is a short bio about him. After I finish the English portion, Mounah will also translate it into his language. Every idea, every project begins with an experience. Mounah grew up with dysgraphia, dyspraxia, stuttering, and ADHD, which was diagnosed at age 28. Like many people with disabilities, Mounah's childhood and adolescence were marked by numerous incidents of bullying at school, both moral and physical, by pupils and teachers alike. Despite the prejudices and constraints, Mounah went on to study at a preparatory school, then entered a top business school and the most selective master's program at Dublin before spending 4 years as a strategy and artificial intelligence consultant. In 2014, at the age of 21, Mounah decided to do everything in his power not to suffer from his disability, but to live his own life. Despite his severe stammer, sometimes unable to say 2 words in a row, he entered the Eloquence competition at his business school. Terrified because he felt incapable because of his stammer, he nevertheless dared. That day he realized that the greatest constraint of disability is the limit we set ourselves because of our handicap. The solution is simple: to love ourselves as we are by assuming our constraints and embracing our strengths, or more simply, to accept our disability. In 2019, at the same time at his first year of employment after his studies, Mounah created the Eloquence Benjamin program. He decided to devote a year from September 22nd to June of this year as a volunteer president to structuring Eloquence de la Différence to enable the association to experiment with its approach on a larger scale. In 1.5 years, 4 cities in addition to Paris have been opened for stuttering eloquence. Tours Eloquence, the same concept open to several disabilities, was a total success with a 2,500-person theater sold out, a prime-time interview, and several invitations to the Élysée Palace, 7 in 1 year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Mounah, would you translate this into French for me, for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Chaque idée, chaque projet commence par un vécu. Celle de l'éloquence de la différence a commencé avec mon histoire. J'ai grandi avec une dysgraphie, une dyspraxie, un bégaiement et un TDAH qui a été diagnostiqué à 28 ans. Comme beaucoup de personnes en situation de handicap, mon enfance et mon adolescence ont été mouvementées par de très nombreux événements de harcèlement scolaire, moral et physique, que ce soit par les élèves ou le corps enseignant. Malgré les préjugés et les contraintes, j'ai décidé de faire une classe prépa, puis une école de commerce, j'ai intégré le premier master en finance de marché en Europe. Et puis j'ai fait 4 ans en consultant en stratégie en intelligence artificielle. Et en 2014, quand j'avais 21 ans, j'ai cherché à tout mettre en œuvre pour ne plus subir mon handicap, mais vivre ma vie. Malgré mon bégaiement très marqué, j'étais pratiquement incapable de dire 2 mots à la suite. Je me suis inscrit au concours d'éloquence de mon école de commerce. Bah, j'étais terrifié car je me sentais incapable à cause de mon bégaiement, mais j'ai quand même osé. Et ce jour-là, j'ai réalisé que ma plus grande contrainte, c'était la limite que je me fixais moi-même à cause de mon handicap. La solution est simple, c'est de s'aimer tel qu'on est en assumant nos contraintes et en embrassant nos forces, ou tout simplement accepter notre handicap. Et en 2019, c'était ma première année d'emploi après mes études, et j'ai voulu créer un programme pour aider les personnes qui bégayent positivement, qui s'appelait Eloquence du bégaiement. En quelques années, on a développé le projet. Il est maintenant dans plusieurs villes de France et on l'a ouvert euh, et on l'a ouvert aussi à d'autres handicaps tels que la surdité, la trisomie 21 et l'autisme. Et notre objectif, c'est de militer pour une meilleure acceptation du handicap.
Thank you. Would you be able to elaborate now in English? What is Eloquence de la Différence and on its approach? So can you share with our listeners exactly what it is?
Okay, so we are a non-profit which was created officially in 2000 on the yeah in 2022. And when we began, we were 20, and we just had one city, Paris, and one disability, stuttering. Now we are more than 300, and we will have 5 cities for stuttering, and we are open to Down syndrome, autism. Um, uh, People who are deaf, and we will open next year to people who are blind and to people with aphasia. And so the concept is simple. The goal is to create a public speaking program in which we are free to talk the way we want, the way we are, because in our society, most of the time we are blocked with norms, and because of these norms, we are not able to be ourselves. And when we stutter, it can be very difficult because we can think that we are not allowed to talk, or at least not to talk as we want because we stutter. So we'll take more time, or as we do, as we as our speech does not flow like for a normal person, it can be a bit annoying. So we 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 work with a professional public speaker, with a speech therapist, but also with people who stutter or who are concerned with disability, to offer 19 hours public speaking course, which covers all the basics of public speaking. The issue when we have disabilities that impacts communication is that we focus on what we cannot do. So for stuttering is to have a flow which is very smooth. So we only focus on this. But we when we become interested in public speaking, we realize that it's much larger than that. We have three pillars of public speaking. The first is the body, like the way you look to people, your gesture, and your posture. Then you have what you will say. So how it is structured? Is it consistent with the idea, with the persons with whom you are talking? And then you have what we can call expressivity. So it's the way you will express emotion in what you will say. First, you can use your voice by using rhythm, using intonation, but also doing some breaks. And with those basics, we realize that whatever our disability is, we can become effective public speaker. But this is only the first part of the program. Then we have what we call the workshop. It's once a week, small groups with people who, as coach, we have speech therapists. We have also students who are students in speech therapy. We have business students, and also we have a person who have a disability who will coach then the person who stutter or with other disabilities, and it is where the work is done. We offer a safe space where everybody can speak, but it's a bit framed, if you want, with a clear agenda. Little by little, we are more and more demanding. After the first session, our student must write 6-7 minute speech on a topic that they choose, but it has to be argumentative. And the goal is that they show to themselves that they can have idea, their own idea, and they can share it well. And then we have a first selection, and we have the selection to push the people to do as best as they can. And after the first section, we impose the topic, and then we have one more section, and we have a grand finale. And for our grand finale, we in June, we gathered more than 2,500 people. So I think it's certainly the biggest event ever in this, on stuttering in the world, and or at least one of them. And by doing this, the goal is to bring ministers to bring medias and to bring CEOs around disability to change their point of view.
Wonderful. Mounah, this is a fascinating program you have. So now, would you mind translating my question and just provide a summary of what you just said about what the program is about?
Can you repeat? Can you repeat?
Okay. Now, would you translate my question, my initial question? Because I asked you to explain what the Eloquence, their Ocean program is all about, and would you explain what it's all about? I mean, translated in French.
Yeah. To be honest, I thought about this, and I did a lot of interviews on this in French, so everybody knows the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I can do it, but I don't know if it is as relevant, but I can do it.
Okay, just if you wouldn't mind doing a short summary of what the program is about. I mean,
Okay.
for our listeners, because we live in
Okay.
Newfoundland, you see. So I'm not, and we do have some French.
Okay. So I will do it. Ok. La question est-ce que vous pouvez m'en dire un peu plus sur le programme? Donc, Eloquence de la différence organise des programmes pour les personnes qui bégayent, mais ces programmes ont été dupliqués pour les personnes avec trisomie 21, pour les personnes avec autisme, avec ou sans déficience intellectuelle, et pour les personnes sourdes, signantes ou oralistes. Et il y a plusieurs parties. Il y a une première partie de formation où on voit les bases de la prise de parole. Parce que souvent, quand on a un handicap qui impacte la communication, on se concentre sur ce qu'on ne peut pas dire ou sur ce qu'on ne peut pas faire. Et en fait, on se rend compte que la communication orale est quelque chose de tellement large qu'on est toujours capable de briller. Il suffit juste qu'on nous donne les outils. Donc on a un premier bloc de 18 heures de formation où on travaille à la fois sur le corporel, donc le regard, la posture, la gestuelle, qui permettent de bien faire passer notre message. Ensuite, il y a le fond avec l'argumentation et donc quelles sont les idées que je vais mettre et comment est-ce que je structure mon discours. Et enfin, il y a l'expressivité, comment je fais vivre mon discours. Donc là, je vais travailler avec la voix, le rythme, les intonations, mais aussi les silences. Et puis ensuite, on a des ateliers pratiques, où là, on crée un safe space pour nos bénéficiaires. Et on fait intervenir des coachs qui sont soit des personnes en situation de handicap, soit des étudiants en non-orthophonie ou en business, ou soit des orthophonistes. Et au fur et à mesure, on les pousse à écrire leurs propres textes et à partager leurs propres idées. Et à la fin, il y a une sélection pour les pousser à aller plus loin. Et il y a une finale. On en a une finale dans chacune des villes. Et ensuite, on a une grande finale où il y a une personne de chaque handicap qui est représentée, qui là a rassemblé 2500 personnes.
Great. Thanks a lot for doing that. Just not to work you too hard today, I'm going to ask you a few more questions, okay? Now, this program now, is it strictly a French program? I mean, is it open? It's strictly French because I'm wondering, has the program been translated or done in English? Or was it strictly a French program?
We have translated it in one language. It's the French sign language.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, we have the ambition to make it international because we are a band of social entrepreneurs, and the farthest we can go, the better it is.
Okay.
The further we can go, the better it is. But then we have some legal problem. We have to think about how we can internationalize our structure so that we can do it in several countries. But yeah, our goal, on my personal goal, is to create a safe space for people who stutter, so that they can feel better thanks to this program, because we have stats, and we have interviewed more than 100 people that we worked with, and among those 100 people, 92% said that they felt a significant positive impact on their acceptation of stuttering and on their mental health, and more than 90% said that they saw a significant improvement in their work life.
Okay.
So it works. And in France, we in France we are now discussing with several institutions to think on how we institutionalize those programs so that they become a reference.
Now, would you mind translating my question and your response? Like just a short response. I knew in French now, because you see, one of the reasons why I'm asking, although you have done a lot of French interviews, there may be a number of French speaking people in our province that are not even aware of this program, and that's the reason why I would like you to translate it.
Oui. Ok. Alors, est-ce que ce programme est présent à l'international? Pour l'instant, il est uniquement présent en France. On l'a fait dans une seule autre langue qui est la langue des signes française, LSF pour ceux qui connaissent. Et bien sûr, on a l'ambition de s'internationaliser pour aider un maximum de personnes. On a fait ce qu'on appelle une mesure d'impact. Et dans laquelle on a interviewé plus de 100 personnes qui bégayent, qui ont fait notre programme. Et parmi ces 100 personnes, on a 92% qui ont ressenti un impact significatif sur leur santé mentale et sur l'acceptation de leur bégaiement après ce programme. Et plus de 90% ont ressenti un vrai impact sur leur insertion professionnelle. Et l'idée, c'est de pouvoir s'internationaliser parce que on est une bande de potes qui a l'esprit d'entrepreneuriat. Mais il faut qu'on se pose aussi la question légale de comment est-ce qu'on peut le faire. Et en termes de statut, en termes de structure, etc. etc.
Thank you. Now, you also mentioned that you have weekly support groups or weekly meetings, and you have various disabilities included like Downs, autism, deaf, blind, aphasia, and it's mainly for public speaking. So, do various members of the group have Downs? I'm just wondering how when you have your weekly meetings, what do you focus on mainly, given the various disabilities in that meeting?
We focus on people. Okay, so because you have two ways of seeing people. in France, we see people through the medical through the medical lens. You have this, you have this, you have this, or through the social lens. You have this. Me, I am Lebanese. Okay, yeah, I'm French Lebanese. No, I am French Canadian Lebanese, but that's another story. And we saw all the people with whom we work as people, like whether um, whether you have Down syndrome or you are deaf or you are autist, you are people, and we'll talk with you and we'll treat you like somebody else. With Down syndrome, we adapted our program so that it matches their need in terms of understanding, in terms of how fast it is. But in the end, we managed to do what everybody thought it was impossible. Have 6 youngsters with Down syndrome write a 10 minutes speech themselves. And we did it. Because we consider them as people and we are sure they will be able to do it.
Okay. So my next question is: Do you want to give a quick summary of this? Like your meetings focus on people, not the disability.
Yeah. Okay. In English?
In French.
Ouais. Ok. Ouais. À chaque fois qu'on organise un programme, et notamment lors de nos ateliers pratiques, on ne se concentre pas sur le handicap. On se concentre vraiment sur la personne. Et c'est vraiment en se concentrant sur la personne que on arrive à permettre à tout le monde de se dépasser et de leur permettre d'atteindre des niveaux que personne n'aurait imaginé. Par exemple, quand on prend les personnes avec trisomie 21, personne n'aurait imaginé qu'elles seraient capables d'écrire un discours argumentatif de près de 7 minutes. Et on a réussi à le faire.
Thank you. Did I hear you correctly saying that there's 300 groups? Your program is in 300 cities. Did I hear? Is that right?
Yeah, we are in several cities. Yeah. So what we do is that we have local teams a bit everywhere in France. We have now 5 local teams and plus 1 in Paris. And because the 5th is being launched in January, and so we structure all these teams so that we can easily scale into new cities. But the first time we did it, we did not know if we will manage or not. But so we thought if we don't try, we never know. So we tried and we made it. And then one week after the first one, we launched a second city. And so we said, okay, we did one, let's go to the next. And yeah, it's and when we also scaled to other disabilities, it was the same. One month before the launch, I didn't know if I will have at least 2 people for each disability, and I didn't know if they will like it. But we took the risk, and it paid.
Okay, so then you're okay. Correct me if I'm wrong now. So at the moment you have 300 members. Is that correct? 300 members, and this program operates in 5 cities? Okay,
Yes.
okay. So would you translate in French for me, just saying that this program has 300 members total and is operating in 5 cities, and you're planning to expand it?
Yeah. Uh, we uh, we have for ambition to be able to cover all France.
No, in French though, in French.
Ok, yeah. Ouais. Donc on a maintenant notre projet est dans 5 villes et en fait ce qu'on fait c'est qu'on s'est structuré en une équipe locale. Euh, et ce qui nous permet d'essaimer le projet hyper rapidement. Mais la première fois où on l'a lancé, on n'avait rien mis en place et on ne savait pas si ça allait marcher ou pas. Il y a un ami qui m'a contacté qui m'a dit je veux le faire à Lyon. J'ai dit ok, on a tenté, ça marchait. Une semaine après la fin de Lyon, on a lancé un autre concours à Nantes, ça a encore marché. Et, et du coup, on a continué à l'essayer. Et quand on a voulu s'ouvrir à d'autres handicaps, c'était même, la même problématique. Et on ne savait pas si ça allait marcher ou pas. À un mois, on ne savait pas si ça allait intéresser les gens, mais on a réussi.
Mona, I'm wondering now, in terms of like funding, where do you get funding for the program, or how do you get your funding?
Okay, we get private funding. In France, we have what we call foundation. So it mostly comes from private funding. Now we are starting to have a bit of public funding, but it's maybe 20%. But our funding was multiplied by 5 this year, and it should continue to grow.
And now just translate my question and your answer in French now.
Okay. Donc comment est-ce que vous êtes financé? Alors, on a surtout des financements privés qui viennent de fondations. Notre budget entre 2022 et 2023 a été multiplié par 5 et normalement, il devrait continuer à grandir.
My next question is, do you divide the funding amongst the 5 cities, the 5 teams?
Yeah, it's a whole organization because we have also a permanent team, so we pay salaries. So yeah, and as now it's an association, but also we have the same challenges as new companies, and we gather all our people in different cities to think on how we can split fairly the money we have, on how also we can build a strategy to receive funding locally.
So now to translate my question in French, how do you divide the funding up amongst your cities?
Donc comment est-ce que vous divisez le financement dans les différentes villes? Alors, en fait, on est une jeune association, mais on a aussi les problématiques d'entreprise. Et donc, on s'est posé, on a réuni les différents acteurs de notre association, les différents bénévoles impliqués, pour qu'on réfléchisse ensemble à une juste répartition. Et donc, et au fur et à mesure que ça évolue aussi, on apprend à se structurer. pour gérer l'association de manière la plus équitable possible.
Mounah, much like all not-for-profits associations, there are challenges. Well, what are some of your group's programs challenges?
I will say that the I will say that the biggest challenge, there are many. The first is to manage to build a new program and then to make it work for years. Our first program now has 5 years, and everybody was thinking that it will last maybe 1 year or 2, but not 5. And then the other difficulty, I will say, is to scale. And when you scale geographically or with different projects, you have different people who are involved, and so it is a whole new organization. And so you have to start to think like a corporation, and this can be difficult. And the last challenge, and the biggest, is funding. And I think funding is recurrent, and it's like a fight of all days.
So would you translate your challenges in French for me now?
Ouais. Donc, quels sont les quels sont les défis pour une association comme la vôtre? Je dirais que les défis sont variés, mais le premier, c'est vraiment de développer un programme et que ça marche et que ça puisse se pérenniser dans les années. Nous, le premier programme Eloquence du bégaiement Paris, tout le monde pensait que ça allait juste réussir un an, et puis voilà. Ensuite, il y a l'essaimage. Quand vous créez de nouveaux projets ou que vous essaimez géographiquement, c'est une toute nouvelle organisation. Il faut tenir compte des gens, des liens, mais aussi de l'équité. C'est hyper compliqué. Et en tout cas, ça nécessite une toute nouvelle organisation. Puis après, le défi pour tout le monde, c'est trouver le niveau de financement qui permette de développer le projet.
Would you name the cities the program is in?
Yeah, so Paris for multi-disability and stuttering, and for only stuttering, it's Lyon, Nantes, Lille, Bordeaux, and soon Montpellier.
And so translate that in French for me, for our listeners.
Ok. Ouais, donc on est pour le bégaiement à Lille, Nantes, Lyon et Bordeaux, et à Paris on est à la fois sur le bégaiement et sur le multi-handicap.
So, Mounah, if any of our English and French speaking listeners we want to find you, where would they find your program? Where would they Google?
They can go on Facebook or Instagram, and they search for Eloquence de la Différence, and they can contact us, or they can go on our website eqdifference.org.
Okay, and translate that in French for me.
Ok, donc vous pouvez nous retrouver sur Instagram ou Facebook en cherchant Différence ou Eloquence de la Différence, et sinon sur notre site web eqdifference.org.
Okay, so we will end shortly, but I'm going to ask you one last question. In your introduction about yourself, you said that the greatest constraint of disability is the limit we set on ourselves because of our handicap. Would you elaborate on that as closing?
But first, what do you think about this?
About the
That,
statement.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, as a person who studies, I also agree with what you're saying, because I feel the greatest constraint of disability is the limit we set ourselves because of our handicap. I think a lot has to do with the mindset, a mindset of our perspective, of our challenge, whether or not it's a disability or handicap. You see, within the stuttering community, there seems to be a 50-50 split, for example, as to whether or not stuttering is a disability or not. But when all is said and done, whether or not stuttering is a disability, it is a challenge for many people to reach acceptance. I think this is the largest, one of the greatest challenges.
yeah, yeah. No, no. It's a it's a true challenge, and I cannot agree more with you. Um, I think, like you, I chatted with hundreds of people who stutter, and and often we set limits, or we do things because we think they are the things we have to do because we stutter, not because we want to do it. And this is a true issue. But when people realize that they can do more and they can overcome disability, uh, stuttering, this change things for life.
Mm.
I have seen so many fast change. It's impressive.
Mm.
It's just a question of mindset, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Could you translate in that in French, like in terms of what your statement means? Elaborate.
Yeah. Ouais. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez développer votre déclaration qui est que euh, euh, le que la vraie difficulté avec le handicap, c'est les limites qu'on se fixe nous-mêmes. Par exemple, quand on est une personne qui bégaye, on peut faire beaucoup de choix à cause de notre bégaiement. Et en fait, on ne se rend pas compte à quel point ça peut et nous, et nous impacter au quotidien. Et, 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 et la réalité, c'est que c'est vraiment juste une question d'état d'esprit. C'est pas facile, mais au fur et à mesure, on y arrive. Et, et il suffit juste de se confronter à cette peur-là pour au moins la comprendre, pour ensuite prendre son temps pour la dépasser.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, one more last question.
Yeah, yeah, with pleasure.
Okay. I'm wondering now. In your introduction, you also are very transparent about your health issues because you grew up with dysgraphia, dyspraxia, stuttering, and ADHD. Do you consider these health conditions or disorders as a challenge or a blessing that has brought you here today, that has been made you get involved in all this? What I'm trying to say is that many people who stutter consider their stuttering as a blessing.
Mm, I think we should be mm, we should mitigate this statement. it's not a blessing in the sense that it's awful to live. At least when I was young, it was very, very difficult. I did not have the childhood that many of my friends had, and and it's the case for some people who stutter. It's not the case for others, but uh, but yeah, it gives you life experience that you will not have if you do not stutter. Uh, I have so much energy and I'm able to build projects because I had those difficulties, because or thanks to stutter. But it, uh, it's not something bad. It's not something good. It has bright side. It has dark sides, but we we should not make it too glamorous, because also I think about all those people who stutter who did not accept it, and those are the people that we do not hear, but that we listen to this podcast. And those people do not want to talk, but many do not accept their stutter. And when you talk about the positive side of stuttering to these people, they are shocked. So I think it's very important to mitigate this statement, but not to be black or white.
Mm-hmm. So translate that in French for me now, or for our
Ouais.
listeners.
Vous disiez que beaucoup de personnes qui bégayent considèrent leur bégaiement comme une chance. Alors, je pense qu'il faut être nuancé. C'est-à-dire que tous ceux qui parlent de leur bégaiement l'ont potentiellement dépassé, ou en tout cas ils l'ont accepté en partie. Mais ça, c'est juste les personnes qui bégayent qu'on voit. Il y a de nombreuses personnes qui bégayent qu'on ne voit pas, qui ne l'acceptent pas, et pour qui c'est très dur à vivre. Et, et c'est pour ça qu'il faut être nuancé. Mais non plus, c'est pas terrible. C'est-à-dire que ça nous apporte et ça nous coûte. Moi, ça m'a beaucoup apporté, mais ça m'a aussi beaucoup coûté. Mon enfance n'a pas été facile, mais ça m'a aussi donné la force d'avoir l'esprit entrepreneurial.
I also have many more questions to ask you, but I think we'll do a part 2. Would you be open to come back to do part 2?
No, it was easy.
Oh, okay. Well, the thing that
Yeah,
thanks again, and we will
not
stay in
difficult.
touch.